Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time watching my videos, in this video I want to talk about social anxiety and how I believe it all started. I've always been a shy kid, but you know, that was just it. I was just shy. I would hide behind my mother when I was in elementary school. And I specifically remember when it was time for me to start the first grade, and I was all out of preschool and everything, and my mother was trying to release me into my classroom for the first time, and I was literally crying because I was so scared to go to class. And I eventually grew out of it, and I started enjoying school. And for some reason, every time when I think about how my social anxiety got started, it makes me think about this incident that I'm about to tell you guys. I remember when I was in first grade, and I forgot my teacher's name, and she had I remember she had huge breasts, huge breasts. And it was Black History Month, and our teacher told us to color Martin Luther King. Dr. Martin Luther King, and in the crayon box or whatever crayon she had, there were two different browns. It was like a lighter colored brown that's almost like, you know, like a caramel color, and it was one that was like a darker brown. And so it was two different browns, and she told us specifically what shade of brown to color the picture with. And that particular day, I remember I used the wrong crayon to color him, and I remember I got yelled at. I don't remember exactly what she told me, but she just was like, "I just told you to use the other crayon, not this one." And I remember she yelled at me, and I started crying. And I remember the popular girl in the classroom, her name was Natalie. She was like the teacher's pet. She always got good grades. Everybody liked her. The teacher said, "Natalie, can you just walk Javacia to the bathroom so she could get herself together?" And, you know, I was crying hysterically, and then, you know, Natalie walked me to the bathroom and just was in there with me, and I was just crying and trying to pull myself together so I could go back to class. And every time when I think about, oh, and by the way, when I returned to class, I was like very humiliated and didn't interact or talk for the rest of the class that day. I remember that specifically. And I honestly believe that's when it all started. Throughout my whole school years, you know, every time I would go to school, it was always, I'd go to school, sit in the corner somewhere, sit in the back, whatever, try not to be noticed by the teacher, try not to get the teacher to call on me, try not to get anyone to talk to me. I just always laid low because I didn't want anyone to notice me, basically. I was very quiet, very quiet. And I remember sometimes, from time to time, kids would come up to me and say, "Do you talk?" or "Why don't you talk?" And they would say things like, "Javacia is quiet," and, you know, things like that. And sirens going by, and it will always make me even more nervous, because it's like you realize that people are, you know, noticing you, and then it makes you want to go into your shell a little more, because it's like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you're not supposed to notice me. Like, why are you noticing me? Why are you even paying attention to me being quiet? And it makes me, you know, want to be quiet even more. So that now I'm thinking, now they won't notice me if I'm even more quiet. Like, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. But I really, like, if I did have a friend, it would be somebody who was an outcast or something. Like someone who got picked on, or someone who was quiet like me, or someone who was friendly with everyone. Those were the type of people that I ended up being friends with, like the geeks, the nerds. And in class, in school, I hated, I absolutely hated, I always hated team, you know, doing those team projects and you got to do things as a group work. I always, oh my God, I hated that. Like when the teacher, when the teacher would tell us that we have to do something in a group, my heart would just drop. Like, it's not the same kind of nervous as most people would think. Like, you know, like someone getting on the stage, it's to a whole nother level. It's like you feel like you're about to die. Like that kind of, like, it was that serious for me because I did not want to be in a group full of people and then you have to give your opinions and everything. And I don't know, I just realized that I just really, in some ways, care about what people think. Like, oh my God, if I say this, they're gonna, you know, they're gonna think I'm stupid. If I say this, they're gonna think I know it all. Or if I say that, you know, so it's kind of like you don't want to say the wrong thing, so I don't want to say anything at all, because if I say this person might get offended by it, and then, you know, it might end up starting drama or a fight or whatever. And if I say this person might, you know, so it's like I always avoided that by not saying anything. And from time to time, I would end up having enemies. Well, not really enemies, but, you know, from time to time in school, there would be people who pick on me and everything because, of course, you see the quiet person in class, they pick on you, whatever, and you just try to ignore it. That's all you can do. And I don't know, my elementary school years, besides that one incident that I just told you, it was basically a blur. Just, I know that throughout my whole elementary time, I was just quiet. And sometimes I was the teacher's pet. The teachers loved me a lot of the times because I was so quiet. I did my work. That's it. I was an average student. In elementary, I think I kind of excelled because I was always good at English. I remember I was in a gifted program in elementary school. I was always the teacher's pet. But in middle school, I got into a few fights. Mostly, one of the fights was over my sister, and then the other fight was because it was stupid. It was because a girl, the teacher had passed, my English teacher in, I believe, 7th grade, was passing around a stapler to everybody to staple their papers, like literally to everybody in their seats. And, you know, in the back row, they had to pass it up to everybody in the front, and then, you know, so on and so forth until it gets around the whole class. And this one girl, I was stapling my paper, and this one girl, it's so stupid now that I think of it. I was stapling my paper, and this one girl was rushing me, like, hurry up, you know, trying to rush me. And then out the blue, I remember saying, hit me then. And then we ended up getting in a fight, and yeah. And I got suspended, and she came back to school earlier than me, which wasn't fair, but. And I acted out in middle school. I remember I spray painted the building one time in school. I spray painted on the side of the school, and the principal said that she would give me another chance for that, luckily. And I remember me, my sister, and one of our friends, we stole candy from the, I believe the teacher's lunchroom or something. They had a cart of candy in there that they were selling, that some students were selling sometimes during lunch, and we stole all that candy that was on that cart. Well, most of it. We stole some of the candy. I was just acting out in middle school. I remember that. And my mother, we moved to, and at that time we were in Muskegon, Michigan. Throughout my life, I was born in Detroit. I started off in Detroit. When that incident happened at elementary school, I was in Detroit. And then we moved to Kansas City, Missouri until when I was in the middle of my 6th grade year, we moved to Muskegon, Michigan, which was where my great-grandmother lived at the time. And so when that incident happened with us stealing and me getting in fights and all that, that was in Muskegon, Michigan. And then when I was getting ready to start high school, we moved to Southfield, Michigan. which is a suburb of Detroit. You might as well, in my opinion, it's still Detroit basically, but it's still, it's a little bit, it's nicer than Detroit though, a little bit, and less crime. So we moved to Southfield, Michigan, and I remember my mother wanted me to go to Southfield High, and of course the high school, and I was completely terrified. Hold on, let me see how much time I have left.